The Pete Sousa Show. It is a Friday edition. We are presented by Slovacics. Thank you so much to Slovacics and to everybody that's making this possible. We got Scotty Swingler back in the studio. We got Corey Dickman coming up with picks. And like I said, we're presented by Slovacics. We're getting set to do a live show out at Slovacics on the 18th of December, I think, which may be coming as a bit of a surprise to Scotty and the folks back in the studio. But that's a fact. I mean, we're coming down the pike for that. I talked to Ali Kadlabar, News 10 Zone in Central Texas, about possibly appearing on that show with us because she is the Czech queen. So if we're going to do anything out at Slovacics, we got to do it with Ali. And I'd be pumped, looking forward to doing that out there. Had a hoops game last night in Fort Worth. TCU losing to Xavier losing to TCU was like part of the Big East, Big 12 battle. All I can think of is the Big East ACC Challenge. That's all I wanted to say all night because that's what I did when I was a kid. That's what I watched. But yeah, now I called the game last night. It was a lot of fun. TCU is a team who they always came into the season. You knew they were going to run up and down the floor. The last 2 years, they've led the country in fast break points. And Jamie Dixon has had this thing where he has taken holdovers from the previous year's roster. At least he's done it over the past 3 years. You know, you bring in a freshman like Mike Miles or somebody. This year they got 4 freshmen and a few transfers. And rather than bringing in like a veteran-laden roster, they now have a bit of a youth movement. And point blank, Jamie Dixon was asked before the season, and he brought it up to us yesterday at shoot-around. Hey, how your team is new. You have young guys this year for the first time in a while. And he basically was like, it was financial. And that's a window into what's going on now in college basketball with recruiting and money being involved. You know, they had hit their limit of big-time recruits that they could get out of the portal. They'd hit their limit financially. So what do you do after that? You get freshmen that are good, not great, you know? And so they actually have, though, a couple of great freshmen. So I guess that I go back on that. But freshmen are affordable, more so than, say, a big-time talent that's in the portal, right? And so they have a couple freshmen, this young man, David Punch, who's really good, and this other guy, Micah Robinson, who Michael Robinson drains a huge 3 early in the game for TCU, comes right into the game, a freshman, and he does like a little 3 sign, and he turns around and he says something to the Xavier bench, and boom, gets teed up right away. Which I was like, I guess you can't do that, but I don't care. I think you should be able to do it. But yeah, TCU has some young players. They ended up winning the game last night. The funniest part, or the most alarming part of the game for me was, you know, we're calling the game for ESPN. Jamie Dixon's right in front of us, and something happened, and there was a loose ball that went out of bounds. It was like, who touched it? You know, we have monitors right in front of us, and Jamie Dixon is right in front of us, halfway up, half court, like outside of the coach's box towards the scorer's table, and he turns to us, and he's like, who did it hit? And right away, I get so nervous. You know, it's a coach yelling at me basically, and I'm not going to tell him who it hit. One, because I get nervous. I can't even operate under those conditions if they're foreign. You know, we can be counting down to a show and I can have no idea if anything's going to work, and I can be cool as a cucumber. But if a coach like Jamie Dixon turns around and yells at me and says, hey, who did that touch last? I get nervous right away. And of course I talked about it on the air. So it was a funny moment. Got to work with my man, Brendan Manzer, who does a terrific job. That was fun. I feel like I'm getting kind of in a rhythm with that. Got another game Saturday night, St. Mary's at Utah in Salt Lake. So I'm pumped about that, leaving for that today. The news of the day that I just have got to get into, that it's all I've been thinking about, and I'm sure you can guess, is the Bill Belichick situation. So Bill Belichick, who, you know, I'm sure several NFL fans of franchises in the NFL are like, man, is Bill Belichick going to come through and save the day for our organization? And I know Cowboys fans are thinking that. We had Matt Mosley on the show last week who sort of debunked any possibility that could come to fruition simply because Jerry Jones is somewhat, not somewhat, he is territorial with his Cowboys, and being the owner, he has a certain amount of things he feels falls within that the rights of being the owner, and they do. I mean, clearly he's shown us he's been able to do whatever he wants. Unfortunately for Cowboys fans, the product on the field has not been a winning one, but the Cowboys make a ton of money, and it's extremely successful as a business model. But you get a coach like Bill Belichick in there, and he's not going to want to deal with any of Jerry's nonsense. And the fact that he interviewed for the North Carolina job, which is now open because Mac Brown was fired on November 26th. By the way, Mac Brown was there for 6 seasons. That's, I guess, since 2018 or 2019. So that's crazy. Now, Mac Brown was 73 years old. And you might say, okay, that's too old to be coaching in college. Well, Bill Belichick is 72. So Belichick, these are sources told ESPN that Belichick who spent his career in the NFL, wants to coach again and is open to listening to people at the college level. So Belichick, he's far and away the biggest name to surface in the North Carolina search. I mean, last week we were talking about Matt Campbell. Somebody was like, whoa, that'd be a great hire. Now we're talking about Bill Belichick. Now, I was just watching the other night on the NFL Network, and this is like an old school NFL Network thing. It's like a top 10 of coaches who were better off in college than they were in the NFL. Guys like Cam's buddy, Dick McPherson, who was an amazing coach at Syracuse. Before that, UMass. And then he went to the New England Patriots, and just like it didn't work. Lou Holtz was another one. Right, he went to the Jets after he had coached after he coached Minnesota and before Notre Dame, he coached for the Jets, and that was not good. Nick Saban, talk about a time machine. If you could hop in a time machine and hear what people were saying about Nick Saban, the coach, in 2005, 2006, this is post national championship at LSU. Now in the NFL with the Miami Dolphins, people were taking massive dumps all over that guy as a coach. Like, that did not go well. And, hey, here he is. Now probably one of the most celebrated coaches of all time across sports. But college or the NFL was not his bag. The NFL has been Bill Belichick's bag. And Bill Belichick's ability to navigate the NFL. By the way, you could. There's always the people that have he couldn't have done any of that, the 6 Super Bowls without Tom Brady, right? And you're like, okay, like the two definitely needed each other. I mean, Brady went on and won another Super Bowl. Bill Belichick did not. So if you're looking for the last word in that argument, maybe you give it to Tom Brady. But Bill Belichick, he actually did, you look at his career in the NFL. First of all, he's a son of a college football coach. His dad was a special teams coach at the Naval Academy for many years. And that's actually, how Bill Belichick got to know Bill Parcells, because Parcells knew his dad. And Parcells worked with Belichick for many years with the New York Giants. And the two obviously had an amazing professional relationship. Personally, there was some stuff, but I think everything's copacetic between the two of them now. But Bill Belichick was an NFL assistant. He was in college, I think, a year here, a year there, maybe. But far and away, for the most part, an NFL assistant. And then he ascends into the head coach of the Cleveland Browns and was the last coach of the Browns before they left Cleveland. Obviously, we know what happens there. He gets fired when the Browns leave. He got fired because they went to Baltimore. And when they went to Baltimore, I forget exactly if he was fired or not, but he parts ways with the Browns. He ends up working for Bill Belichick at the Jets, at the Patriots. And then he goes to Bill Belichick when Belichick goes to the Jets. Was supposed to take Belichick's job when Belichick left the Jets, did not want to take the job because he thought the Jets sucked. And he had a pretty good beat on that one, right? Like that was when the Johnson family had bought the Jets like in the late 90s, 1999 around, because Leon Hess had died, the owner of the Jets. So Belichick then ends up at the Patriots with Robert Kraft, and history is written. None of what I've mentioned so far have included Bill Belichick coaching a college football program. So I'm going to tell you why it could work. First of all, by the way, does anybody think that his new girlfriend is behind this at all? Like anybody, like, is that like at all? Like, because that's what I thought, like just for a second, because maybe I'm polluted with like enough stuff out there. This goes back to just liking romantic comedies and having a bunch of guys that I've been very close with whose significant others have gotten them into crazy situations, whether it's been like work or personal or whatever, you know. Hey man, we've all been whipped, right? So that's just one thing where it's like, wow, is this guy just like whipped? And maybe his girlfriend's like, oh my God, Bill, it will be so much fun. You coach in college. I love Chapel Hill. My girls are there. That's something that definitely crossed my mind. All right, let's get that out because that doesn't exist. That's in my mind, which is like silly talk. The reality is Bill Belichick wants to get back into coaching. No better opportunity to actually teach than at the college level. The issue is all the stuff that comes with it. Now, in reality, if he were ever to take a college coaching job, I think we've seen a couple things. First of all, this last year for Belichick, whether it's been on the Manning cast, particularly, I would imagine his work with Pat McAfee almost opens this door a little wider because he now is becoming more of a relatable figure in pop culture. I mean, you could even say the stuff with his girlfriend makes him more relatable to like the younger generation that we're talking about, the type of person that will be playing for Bill Belichick in college. So he does have like a lane there, which he did not have before, which he has created over the course of the past year, where it's like, okay, Bill Belichick is able to connect with some of these younger people, whereas a year before when you look at him or 2 years before when he's coaching in the NFL or just a year now, you would have never imagined that he would have had that sort of juice with younger people. They would have just known him as this amazing coach. The thing is about right now, when you look at everything that's happening, you hear a lot of people say, well, he's not made where he could be a college coach. Like he's not in a situation where he has the charisma. He's not like a marketing guy, which a lot of these college football coaches are. But, on the other side of that, like when you think about the college football player and who they're made up of today, and I just as an example, like Brian Kelly, where Bill Belichick is like, okay, I'm not sure if I like him. He's different, and he's like a Yoda when it comes to football. So like there's a glowing reverence and respect that we have for a guy like Bill Belichick. Brian Kelly's just like unlikable, right? But he's still year in, year out, gets amazing players to come play at LSU. Let me be the first to tell you, from knowing what I know and having people in my life who I have in my life that are involved with this kind of stuff, they're not going to LSU because of Brian Kelly. They're going to LSU because of the folks that work for Brian Kelly that are recruiting these guys. And because a lot of the bells and whistles and amenities that come with playing football for LSU. Sure, Brian Kelly's a part of the process. There's no question about it. But they're not running to play for a personality like Brian Kelly's. In fact, I would think that some of these players would not want to play for a guy like Brian Kelly. So you even look like, from a personality standpoint, it's almost like I think he would be like a detriment. But he still gets amazing players to go to LSU. So that, I think, takes care of that. I think that Bill Belichick, if he has the right kind of guys around him, like let's say Gerard Mayo gets fired, right? And Gerard Mayo goes with Bill Belichick, and now he's the linebackers coach or defensive coordinator for wherever Bill Belichick is coaching. Let's say North Carolina in this case. Like Gerard Mayo could probably be a terrific recruiter. Think about it in that respect, right? Like how amazing would that be for someone like Gerard Mayo to be recruiting, be in the living room of some of these young kids? Another thing to consider, having been recruited, like the reason I went to the school I did to play football was because my mom wanted me to go there. Like they like parents are huge in this process. They meet the coaches, they're on campus. That's a lot of times if you go all the way back to like a coach like Bill McCartney when he was at Colorado, when he got all the guys that he got to come play at Colorado. McCartney was a big time, a guy who was involved with God and the Bible. So he would go into these homes in, let's say, South Central Los Angeles, and he would sit down with a mom who had an amazing vigor as far as like religion and God was concerned. And there's a connection there. And Bill McCartney would, you recruit the parents almost more so than you recruit the kids themselves. So that's something to consider. Like how many parents that have seen Bill Belichick, sets of parents or single parents, and know all the success that comes with the Patriots, six Super Bowls, like I mentioned, like that's a guy you trust. And it's like, okay, my kid could play for him. Nick Saban was Bill Belichick's old defensive coordinator when the two of them were in Cleveland together. And like Nick Saban he's not like this amazing, charismatic guy. He's another person who, when you look at where he is now, he's kind of opening himself up now in a more attractive light to connect with kids and the younger generation. But clearly he didn't need this like amazing, flowery, overly charismatic persona to be successful in college. So with all that said, I believe that Bill Belichick could go to North Carolina. I think he could do a great job. I don't know that he's like cut out for it long term, because for all the reasons that a guy like, this is like the wild card, and it's not even a wild card anymore. It's a reality. Like when you look at Tony Bennett leaving Virginia, Jay Wright leaving Villanova, Nick Saban leaving Alabama. I'm forgetting all kinds of other big names who have left the sport because of the condition, or their sports, because of the condition that it's in today, right? Because of the condition that college sports are in, and the major changes that are taking place with college football as far as NIL and recruiting is concerned. Like the dark side and the underbelly of all this is like, does Bill Belichick want to get in the transfer portal and chase quarterbacks? Maybe, because that's what he did, if you think about it, when he was coaching for, let's see, I keep getting these phone calls, man. I'll have to call my mom back. There's a whole story behind that. But yeah, she's doing okay right now. We like maybe Bill Belichick's comfortable doing that, right? Like chasing free agents like he did when he was a GM. Or the last thing I'll say is maybe this is just a strategic move by Bill Belichick, right? Like we're all playing checkers and he's playing chess. This could be a move, because when you think about the way the chain of events and all this kind of stuff happens, there is a simple thing here where Bill Belichick had a conversation with someone at North Carolina, and someone involved in that process leaked this to somebody they know in the media. If you're North Carolina, it certainly makes your job look a little better. If you're somebody who's Bill Belichick, like maybe he has an agent, a lot of these coaches do, and he probably does. I'm foolish for even questioning that. Maybe his agent leaks that because they want to get that out and make Bill more attractive for some NFL jobs that right now are starting to open up before our eyes as we get down towards the end of the season. Like what's going on in Chicago, right? Like maybe that's a spot where, okay, like maybe we need to get going on this Bill Belichick thing before he takes the job with North Carolina. There's all kinds of stuff at play. And the one thing I know is that we don't know all the things that are going on, but it certainly is interesting to forecast and to take the evidence we have, right? Knowing college football, how we know it, knowing Bill Belichick, how we know it, knowing some of the other usual suspects in college football now, some of the coaches, like it is not beyond the realm of possibility to think that Bill Belichick could get a job in college and do a great job. Like it is not. It's actually very possible. So we'll be keeping an eye on that one. And I'm sure like in a day or two that could totally get shut down. But boy, is it interesting right now. And Corey Dickman's going to come up. We're going to talk about football bets for this upcoming weekend. The Big 12 Championship. Here's something about the Big 12 Championship that I haven't discussed yet, but since we're getting into a betting segment with Corey, I'm going to bring it up. All my official hats are off, like as far as talking about this game. The show we did for the Big 12 aired on ESPN last night on ESPN2. It's funny. Think about that, by the way. If you're watching this or if you live in Waco or Central Texas. So KWTX is owned by Gray Television, and so is Raycom Media. Raycom is a production company out of Charlotte that has put together college football broadcasts, bigger games, especially ACC games in that region of the country, for like 30 years. Like Raycom swung a very big stick back in the day. They still produce those games that are on for the Big 12. Or not Big 12, on the CW network. And some of those ACC games you'll see here. I think sometimes it's actually a Big 10 game, but it's mostly ACC. And they are now under the umbrella of Gray Television, which owns KWTX and owns Raycom. So the Big 12 partners up with Raycom, and they say, we want to have a show that we want to produce. And Raycom says, okay, well, if we're going to produce a show, the company that owns us has a station in Waco, Texas, and we're going to produce the show out of that station. And the people at the Big 12 in Dallas are like, hey, that works for us. It's right up the road, 90 minutes from us. Like, go ahead. Like, if you can do it, like, let's see if we can do it. So we all kind of, the Big 12 and Raycom assembles their personnel, and I'm part of that mix. And we do a show, and the show is pretty good. And then all of a sudden, ESPN wants to put the show on the air because they're affiliated with the Big 12. When you think about, the football agreements and the live events contracts, so there's room for that, I'm sure, in the pie. And last night, and it's still going to be running over the next few days, but like this is kind of like inside baseball. Last night, there's a show all over the world on ESPN2 at 10 o'clock that was shot in a studio in Waco, Texas, which is pretty cool. We had Scotty's boy, Shahan Jayaraja was on. It was me and Madison Hawk, and it was a good show by all counts. And if you haven't caught it yet, it'll keep running throughout the course of the weekend up until the game tomorrow morning. So I guess it's going to be running like today on all the different ESPN networks and then tomorrow morning for a little bit. But yeah, pretty cool, man. Feather in the cap for Raycom and for KWTX and for knuckleheads like me to be a part of that deal. It's kind of cool. As far as the Big 12 Championship is concerned, I am fearful that it is too early of a game for Arizona State. I think I've talked a little bit about that. I don't like that it is, let's see, it's a 10 o'clock start Pacific time for Arizona State, the way that their like body clocks are made up. And I don't think that helps. I'm not saying it's a death knell, but I do not think that type of thing helps for a team coming from Arizona to play that early in the morning. I do think it is beneficial for them that it's inside, it's on a fast track. I was talking to Matt Enzer, a PR guy from the Big 12 yesterday, and I was of course kicking around trying to be like the king of controversy. I was like, hey, like what if the sun is coming through? Will Jerry pull the curtains down or whatever? And he said, we've already looked at it, right? Like at that point in the day, that's not an issue. But it had been something that they had talked about. And also the folks from the Big 12, getting ready for this Big 12 championship. You're working with people from AT&T Stadium. You're working with people from the Cotton Bowl. They're actually heavily involved in that game because it's almost like a dress rehearsal for them because the Cotton Bowl is like a semifinal bowl this year, right? So the Cotton Bowl is in lockstep with the people from AT&T and the Big 12. And they're like, the guy from the Big 12 was like, whoa, you want to talk like Rolls-Royce operation? Like, because a lot of times when you're with a league and you go on to a site, I mean, you really can't even imagine all the stuff that goes into it. Like I go back to my days as like a PR coordinator, assistant or manager, or should I say assistant coordinator, then manager in the NBA. Could never make it up to director. Can you imagine why? It was all before I got sober. But on a game day, it's just like you're overwhelmed with responsibility. That's just a game day, a game you're playing at home. And if you take a game on the road to like a preseason game at like a neutral site, it gets crazy. There's just so many things in play. It's like herding cats. I mean, it's all the way down from getting the stat crew that will work the game, taken from this environment where they're always punching in stats at your home games in Philadelphia. And now we've got to get them to Atlantic City where we're having a preseason game. So anyways, the Big 12's in pretty good shape, letting me know last night that, man, it's been great to work with the AT&T and the AT&T Stadium folks and the folks with the Cotton Bowl. So I'm worried about Arizona State playing early. I don't think that's going to kill them. I think the fact that they play inside is helpful. And I know that Cam Scadaboo is somebody who we're going to be watching. I'm looking forward to him having a big day. But ultimately, at the end, I think it's going to be Iowa State. In the end, it's all about the mortgage bet, baby. And Corey Dickman has that and more. We're going to keep him accountable, too. Coming up with this week's picks on the Pete Sousa Show, powered by the Rogue Media Network.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. That's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
All is right with the basketball world. God's gift to the game of basketball, the Boston Celtics, are back in the NBA Finals, baby. I don't think the Mavs did anything special. They played well enough to win and win pretty good. You know what I mean? Yeah. I thought the Celtics didn't show up to play at all, and maybe if they showed some fight in the second half, they would have lost by 15 or so. Is he in the Red Sox Team Hall of Fame?
He is also in the Red Sox Hall of Fame.
Something about this guy being in the Team Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it did. So,
deserved it, man.
Which seems like it fit.
Sports.
All right, we're back. It's time to make some money. We are all in. Nobody knows what's in the Styrofoam cup, but nobody knew what was in Lil Wayne's Styrofoam cup. So there we go.
Young Weezy.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Corey Dickman is back. Corey, before we get into our picks, I spent the first segment talking about Bill Belichick possibly being a coach at North Carolina.
Oh yeah, okay.
You're pretty knowledgeable fan of sports in general. What do you think about that? Like, what's your instant reaction?
So, instant reaction. Well, I'll say this first. This wasn't prep, by the way, but I'll say this first. So, like Saban, right? Wasn't Saban part of the Belichick tree?
Yes.
At this point, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So, and they're cut from the same cloth, clearly. And I think the college game got away from Saban, right? He had it down, how he recruited, how they probably paid players their own way in Alabama, and everyone was going to turn the other cheek. And now that it's a wide open field, right? Nick was like, no, I'm done.
Yeah.
There's no way Belichick goes in there at the age of 74, right? Isn't he
72?
72. And hits the ground running and recruits and does the portal game. You know, he's used to like, get in here, do your job, right?
Yeah.
Do your job. Tom, you take a pay cut. Everyone do your job. And like, you know, and he's going to follow Mac Brown. Like, they need to go the other way. find a 32-year-old and
Yeah.
get the youngest coach in the FBS, not the oldest coach. So no, disaster. Why would you do that? What is North Carolina thinking? What in your right mind would think he goes in there and changes the North Carolina Tar Heel football program?
There
Right?
you go. You said it.
Or do you disagree? Or you think
I think there's a path where
Oh.
it could be interesting, but I try to keep an open mind. All right, that's why I asked you. All right, let's get to the picks.
Do you think there's a connection like Drake May, quarterback at UNC, left for the Patriots, and then they get Bill Belichick? Maybe it was a swap thing.
I don't know. I think his new girlfriend might be behind it, but that's a whole like crazy theory.
Hire her.
Like,
she's young enough.
I feel like she's got friends in Charlotte that can like it's so close to North Carolina to like Chapel Hill.
She graduated last year, right? From college.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm ready. Let's talk some betting. Let's do
All right,
some
I'm ready. I'm ready to rock. Let's go.
All right. Okay. Last week we had
man,
much better. It was a better week. We were coming off of a 0-3 2 weeks ago. And the Thanksgiving weekend, Pete, is always a little iffy sometimes, right?
Yes.
I was skittish to some degree. I've had some bad beats past Thanksgivings, but we charged forward. And so NCAA, the college picks, we went 2-1, which is good. That's what we always should just do. If we're not going to go 3-0, we have to go 2-1, right?
Yeah, of course.
So the hits, I'm doing 2 cards this week, Pete. So this is throwing me off. I said Colorado. It was Oklahoma State. Our friend Mr. Ingham, his alma mater, played Colorado, and I said this is going to be a slaughter because Colorado played on Friday night. Right, they had to set the tone for all these ties and possible scenarios in the Big 12 championship, and so they didn't know the results yet. So they started and they blew out Oklahoma State. This was minus 16.5 is what we took. They won by like 48. I don't know, Pete. Right? They're still scoring. Shador.
I think it was 52-0.
Incredible. There was a part of me that wanted to look at what an alt bet would have been. Like if you had taken Colorado plus 30 or a minus 30, you would have been at like plus 700, and you would have had still room to go. So slaughtered that pick.
Did you ever do a lightning bet? You know what those are?
What's a lightning bet?
So a lightning bet, this is as I remember it, like if you take Colorado, right? Like every point they win by, you get like extra money. And the same thing with every point they would lose by. Yeah.
I like that. Okay, I'm gonna have to look for the lightning bet.
Oh no,
all right. That's next week.
Lauren, I apologize.
All right. Okay, now we're going to go to the loss because we did have a loss. Scotty, this is a heartbreaking clip. Keep in mind, we had Clemson minus 2.5. Okay, Scotty, roll the clip.
Time for Sellers. Eludes the pressure. There he goes. Lenora Sellers again to the end zone. He made it.
I still, my blood boils watching that clip. I cannot believe that happened. 3rd and 16. Pete, do you know Lenore Sellers' stat line from this game?
Lenore? No, I don't.
Lenore?
But I know his name.
Lenore, potato. He had 164 yards throwing and 166 yards rushing. The man had 2 more yards running than he did throwing, and they end up winning this game. Just throw 12 in the box. I know you can't have that many defenders on the field. The man's not going to throw at 3rd and 16. He can only run. How did this happen? This is a
breakdown.
Breakdown. But you know what, Pete? There was still a minute left on the clock for Clemson. And all they had to do really was they could win the game, which would have covered, or kick the field goal and tie. And all they had to win was by 2.5. So we had some chance in overtime. Scotty, play the clip.
2 plays before a potential field goal attempt. Klubnik buys some time. It wasn't picked up. Was it intercepted? It was. Knight picked it up. Off the fingertips of Maffa. Knight
off the fingertips of Maffa. If you watch it, it like hits his hand and his arm, and then it's that awful.
That's my buddy Roy Philpott announcing that game too. He did a great job.
He did a really good job calling it.
He's from Clemson. he's a Clemson homer, so he had to be right down the middle with all that.
Oh, geez, Louise.
Yeah,
Well, he did a good job calling it. That was a disaster. So we had multiple ways we could have
Great job, Scotty, with the clips. That was good.
Scotty killing it with the clips. So you lose that one. And then you know what, Pete? This last one, and I'm ashamed to be in this room with all these people, with Scotty, with you, just all of us. And the disrespect everybody had for our Baylor Bears, even the betting line +1.5 against this Kansas team that you were like, oh, Kansas, you're better. And what does Baylor do, Pete? We just go and win the game, man. It wasn't even, we weren't even close to this 1.5 point.
It was amazing.
And Baylor handles their business, moves to 8 wins, will get a better bowl. And you know who didn't make a bowl? Kansas. So sorry, Kansas, you're out of it. I was so happy because you were doubting this, Pete. You were like, Corey, Kansas, and I get it. Was I probably angry at Kansas because they've done me wrong the last few weeks? Sure. Yeah. But I was happy about this. So,
dude, it was an amazing pick because really, I mean, Kansas again had beaten 3 ranked teams in a row.
Yeah.
Like Kansas was almost favored in that game on the road at Baylor.
Ran out of gas. I think you can't. Kansas, that's hard to do that week in and week out, especially as an underdog or really climbing back into the standings. There was just that you can't win 4 in a row, I think. And Baylor home game, McLean showed up, 11 o'clock start, got the win. So happy about that, 2-1. The NFL will go quickly here. Cincinnati, I hate Cincinnati. I know hate's a strong word, and you don't want to hate anybody. I can't stand them. They let me down. I'm done with them. They were -2.5. This was a must-win game against Pittsburgh, and they I was going to say another word. They laid down. They pooped the bed. They didn't care, and so they lose by 6, which was super depressing. But the game we covered, which was, I will say, when we slaughter, when we hit picks and I say, great, look at us, I'll also say it the other way. Tampa at Carolina over 46.5. We needed a little Baker magic at the end to force overtime. That got us to 46 points, 23-23. And then we ended up getting the game-winning field goal in overtime. But it almost looked like a tie there for a second.
Yes.
There was a moment where there could have been a tie, which would have sucked. But we hit the over. That worked.
What's the overall record? Let's go.
Okay, overall record. So college, we're 20-15-1, 20 wins, 15
nice.
1 tie. We're back on track. The NFL, we're 15-14, so 1 up right now. We went 1-1 this past weekend. And then the mortgage, we hit the mortgage. You paid your mortgage, Pete. You can stay in the house that you're currently in. This, and again, wasn't even really close. Browns at Broncos. We needed the Broncos to win by 1. They covered that. And then 49ers at Bills. That was a disaster of a game for the 49ers. The Bills end up winning. They covered -2. So we
refresh my memory. Did we have any action on the Bears and the Lions? We didn't. That's right. You didn't do one.
Stayed away from Thanksgiving. Okay. Only thing I touched on, and for our underdog, download the Underdog app. Remember, use promo code 360.
Scotty is all over the Underdog app. I mean, they've already, regardless of what we do with our marketing campaign, Scotty's already hit the quota. They're like, wow, this guy. Yeah.
Scotty's got us covered. The Underdog pick was the Black Friday game, Kansas City versus the Raiders. We had Xavier Worthy over 32.5. He hit that. Brock Bowers over 49.5. He hit that. Patrick Mahomes, 24.5 completions. It was a little close, but we got there. So we had 3 of the 4. So we made money right there. We were at 1.5 was the qualifier there. Bless you, Pete.
Thank you.
But the one we didn't hit, which would have got us at that 14x, which is what would have been great, would have been that Noah Gray
14x.
Oh, it would have been great. 14 times our money.
Yeah.
We didn't hit it, but we still made money. So, I got one for you this week. But yeah, Pete, that was how it went. That's how it went last week.
Let's find out how it's going to go.
Here we go. Now it's going to go. Okay. This is one of my favorite weekends.
So, by the way, the college now, look, it's scaled back, dude. The action this week, like what? So let's go.
Yeah, this felt like a good UCLA week for me, but sadly they're not able to be picked.
No, and they fired Eric Bieniemy, so
Oh,
you're gonna have to follow him to wherever he goes and bet on
I
him.
sent a tweet to old Eric and I said, "Look, man, I had your back. You covered more than you didn't this year, which is a win in my book. So give that man a trophy." All right, we're going championship games, Pete. That's what this week is.
Okay.
Georgia at UT, Texas University.
Yeah.
They are favored -2.5. This is their first time ever being in an SC.
Texas is favored by 2.5.
Texas is favored by 2.5. Did you hear what happened this morning? Did you hear what they're not
Bevo?
letting? Poor Bevo. If UT needed any motivation, that's what it is. You're going to let the Bulldog go, but not the big Longhorn.
I was talking to Christy this morning, and she watches The Real Housewives. And I was talking to her about this woman, Kelly Ben Simone, who was on years ago. I was like, see, Kelly's back in the news, I was like, she's a Real Housewives, like, GOAT. And she's like, no, she's not. She's like dangerous. They don't even let her on the show anymore. I was like, oh, wow. So she's kind of like Bevo. Like Bevo's dangerous. They're not letting it. He's not allowed to be at the game. There's not enough room, and he's a danger to people.
Well, and Pete, this goes in life for us humans. It's like that. 5 years ago was when he pushed the gate down or whatever he did. That's a person can change after 5 years, and so can a bull. So I think it's very unfair that they're putting. They're holding this against Bevo, but in reality, Pete, you have Georgia. Georgia's been in these SEC championship games, and they know this doesn't matter, right? Win or lose, they're in the playoff. They only care about the playoff. UT, first year in the SEC, they want to make a statement. They want to make sure they get the bye. They come out and win this game. They're going away winning this game.
I like your thinking.
I say -6.5. Juice it up a little bit. But
by the way, did you see that? I did that short about UT the other day.
Yeah.
It gets like 2,000 views. Like people, you say like the people the UT fans are ready for this, dude.
Oh, they're so ready for this. They've been waiting because really UT, and we know this being in the Big 12 with them, they've been down for a while, really, especially to the UT standards. Back when I was in school, it was like, oh yeah, if you could even. I remember my freshman year at Baylor. We were beating UT in the first quarter. At the end of the first quarter, we were up like 14-6. And it was like we had a parade down 5th Street. We ended up getting slaughtered. But they've been down for a long time. They come in, win this game by 2.5. All right. I'll save that one. We'll go here first.
What do you mean? Well, sorry, guys.
Oh, I'm going to finish with this last one. Clemson, you're dead to me. You're dead to me. You're dead. All of you are dead. Your friend, that's the announcer, he's dead. Roy Philpott's dead to me. They're playing SMU. Clemson has really nothing to play for here. I mean, I know if they win, they're in, right? Pete, isn't that how this whole thing works? So
that's how it looks.
They don't want it. They didn't want it last week when they had it there, 3rd and 16. They didn't want it against South Carolina. SMU. Again, just another team that's like wanting to prove themselves. Like we've been this program that has never really had a chance, especially after they got the death penalty and all that stuff. They're -2.5 too. I like the 2.5. Give me the ponies. Give me the ponies.
I disagree with you.
Oh no.
That's all. Just remember this next week, and you can probably get after me if I'm wrong. The game's in Charlotte. It's too close to Clemson. They always go to. It's a weird deal. So.
Okay, well, we'll see. Well, last week's game was at Clemson, and they lost.
Yeah. And I was wrong last week with Baylor, so we'll see.
That's true. You were. So SMU -2.5. Give me a pony win by a field goal. And then you love these teams. You call these games. You wear this jersey. Iowa State versus Arizona State, the Big 12 championship. This is like the black sheep of all the teams right now, right? It's like, well, I guess one of these teams has to be in, so let's just see whoever the winner is from the Big 12. I don't know who's going to win, Pete. I don't want to try to pick it, but you know what's going to happen? They're not going to score more than 49.5 combined points. This is Iowa State, Arizona State.
I like, dude.
Low scoring game under 49.5.
I love that, Corey. I love that bet.
I don't know who's going to win. I looked this over. No idea. I was like,
I think Iowa State is going to win, and I think it's going to be low scoring. I think Arizona State being without their best wide receiver, Jordan Tyson, really hurts them. Yeah, sure. I also think they're playing like too early in the morning. It's like a clumsy time for Arizona State. Yeah. Like I think you're right. I think Iowa State wins the game. It's like 20-19.
The only guy I'm worried about, who's the little guy?
Scatterboo.
Scatterboo. God, that guy is so good.
He's awesome,
He's
dude.
so good. I worry about him scoring a lot of points. Under 49.5. Okay? Those are our picks. So UT minus 2.5, SMU minus 2.5, Iowa State, Arizona State under 49.5.
By the way, I like doing championship week with you in college because I feel like I can wrap my mind around this better.
Yeah, this is the best time of the year.
Yeah.
Man. This is so fun. Okay. NFL, you ready for the big boys?
Yeah, let me get my phone back.
Okay, get your phone back. All right. This game, you may look at this and be like, who would even want to watch this game? Right? And it's like, I get you.
Scumbags like you.
But the line feels good to me. And I'm talking about the Aaron Rodgers-led Jets going down to Miami, Florida, Pete, and playing the Dolphins. Okay. The Jets are dead. The Dolphins have a tad bit of life, but they're pretty much dead too. Give me over 44.5. I think this game gets wild. I think Rodgers has a swan song moment here. Is that a swan song? Is that what
yeah, swan song. Yeah.
I think they score some points. I think Tyreek may have a better game here. Devon Achane is playing really well. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. I think give me over 44.5. Feels like
that's what it is. 44. It still is 44.5. Okay. All right.
It feels like a low line. These teams aren't really playing for anything. I think if the Dolphins like won out, maybe there's a scenario there where they could be a wild card. But it just feels like there's going to be points. I think the defenses are going to take a day off here.
Okay. All right.
So give me 44.5. Over 44.5. Then this is the one I'm scared, but I feel good. But I'm scared. The Bears going to the 49ers. If you have a team this in all the NFL, Pete, that had a chance but no longer does, and I mean at winning the title, going to the Super Bowl.
It's the 49ers.
49ers, and now they don't. Like 49ers, they're a shell of themselves. Everybody's hurt. This is a bad year. The Bears are plus 3.5. I think Caleb Williams could lead that team and go get a win against the 49ers. I'm not going to take the win, but 3.5, it could be a field goal game. And I think that feels good. I think the Bears, the new coach deal, maybe that plays a part in this as well, which has always been a pretty hot thing this year and in the past as well. So give me the Bears without Eberflus, that guy. We're all texting, me, you, and Scotty. That was just a disaster. Like
I told you he was going. I hate to say I told you, I knew he was going to get fired. I was like, that's the worst thing I've ever seen. I feel bad for the guy.
I should have taken a screenshot of our text thread and we should have put it up here because we were calling that. I mean, again, I love to mention my in-laws because they're the best people, not big football people, but they're the best people.
What do they say?
Oh, they were like, that was bad. Like, my mother-in-law was like, was that supposed to happen? I was like, no, not supposed to. So when she's calling out the head coach, they got to be fired.
That's it. That's it.
You can't come back from that. So give me Bears plus 3.5. New coach. They love the coach. They always love the new coach.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The locker room loves the interim guy. But Bears travel to 49ers 3.5.
Okay.
All right. Mortgage. Ready? You gonna call your lender here, Pete? Your mortgage lender? This is a good spot for a sponsor here. We need a mortgage sponsor. Mike, our boy Mike, he's a podcaster, not Mike Hamilton, but he has a show with us, and he could be our sponsor here. Anyway, the Bills going to the Rams. Okay, Pete, we've seen this story with the Rams. I don't believe in them. I think the Bills, again, they're rolling here. They're going to roll all the way on to the one seed.
By the way, does Mike own like a dispensary or something? Like that was the most vague. Like what is Mike?
Well, no, it's because I couldn't remember Mike's last name. I'm blanking on Mike's last name right now. No,
okay.
He owns a mortgage company.
Gotcha. Okay.
Not a dispensary. He owns a mortgage company.
Well, I thought the dispensary because it could alleviate some of the stress that you throw people with some of these.
Mike Hamilton's trying to tell me that I can't. Mike Nelson. What's his podcast called? Efficient Lending is the name of his mortgage.
Oh, wow. I think we do have a sponsor for the mortgage bet.
All right. Mortgage bet brought to you by Efficient Lending with Mike Nelson. Mike, it checks in the mail, Mike.
Yeah.
Bills at Rams. Give me Bills, Pete. They're minus 3.5 right now. We're going to tease this 5 points, get this to plus 1.5 for the Bills going to the Rams. So that's the first part of the mortgage. The second part, again, this team's dead to me. I hate the Bengals. This is a very hateful segment today. I shouldn't be so hateful. The Bengals, I can't stand them. Going to the Cowboys. Are you looking? How many points are we giving the boys here? How many points are the Cowboys getting?
Cowboys are getting 5 points.
5
at home.
I have 5.5. I'm taking mine. 5.5, our FanDuel sponsor. 5.5 points. We're juicing that to 10.5 with the tees. 10.5. Our boy Matt Mosley.
Well, I'd love to. You know, we should get those guys would never do it, but wouldn't it be cool to get a doomsday pick?
You know, Mosley doesn't believe in this stuff.
Oh, he
Pete.
doesn't?
I don't think he's a big bettor.
No.
But we can talk to him about it. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe Ed Werder can pick a game for us too. 10.5 is where we're getting this.
Speaking of checks in the mail,
10.5. Checks in the mail. 10.5. The Cowboys on a 2-game win streak. They're going to make it 3. I think the Cowboys are going to keep this interesting this season. They're not dead yet, Pete.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. Are you prepared for the Cooper Rush versus Dak Prescott argument that's going to happen at the end of the year?
No, but I am prepared for why Mike McCarthy should stay. I am.
Oh, yeah.
Man.
That's probably one bad part. Okay. All right. So those are our picks. So to recap, Jets at Dolphins over 44.5. The Bears travel to San Francisco, play the Niners, plus 3.5. Give me the Bears. And then our mortgage pick is Bills plus 1.5. Cowboys plus 10.5 as we get the 5-point tease in there for a two.
I like that. I really like that, by the way.
It feels good, man. It feels good. And then we'll wrap it up with our real sponsor, Underdog Sports. It's a fantasy app. Go download the app. You can do it in Texas. You can pick over-unders. That's basically, it's super simple, right? Will Pete Sousa throw for over 250 yards? Over-under. No, Scotty says no.
Yeah.
So this is mine. This is mine for the upcoming, I did an NFL one Sunday, okay? I spread it around because you can do this. It doesn't all have to be in the same game. You could even do a college one and pair it with an NFL. Like you can mismatch. You can do an NBA one if you want. I did an NFL one and I did 4 players on 4 different teams. Okay. The first one, Alvin Kamara against the Giants, over 120.5 yards plus receiving yards, rushing plus receiving, 120 yards. Kamara is going to tear up the Giants. This is going to be Alvin Kamara's, he's a fantasy player, and I bet has himself on every team. And really that's all that there is to play for in this game is going to be fantasy numbers. So he's going to go over 120.5. Our boy Brock Bowers, 71.5 yards, too low. That's way too low. All they're going to do is throw to this man.
Yeah.
So over 71.5 yards. I alluded to this earlier. He's on my fantasy team, so I'm a little partial here. But Devon Achane, 92.5 combined rushing and receiving. I said this game's going to go over. If it goes over, he's going to have a big game, and he catches a lot of passes.
Yeah.
He almost gets more receiving yards than rushing yards. So, and the Jets aren't going to have any sort of resistance against this guy. So, give me over 92.5. And then your boy, Saquon. I couldn't pick the over with his yards peak because it was so high. It was like 130 yards, but 21.5 rushing attempts. They're going to have a lead. I think the Eagles roll. He will carry the ball 22 times.
Yeah. And by the way, I think and I do believe in this, it is a copycat league. The NFL is. And now we're finding ourselves in a place where running backs we're loading them up with carries. We're loading them up with success and opportunities. And I think you're right. I think it's a great time to pick someone like Saquon to go over in carries.
Yeah. And it's getting a little colder now.
Yep.
Hand the ball off. I think, the worst thing that could derail, obviously a Saquon injury would be awful, but they got to keep Jalen upright. And really the question mark has been A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. Like those guys have just been injured, both of them on and off all year. So I think they're going to keep this game on the ground and make their way into the playoffs. I don't know if they'll catch Detroit. I mean, they have a real chance to, but I think anyway, Saquon, hand the ball off to Saquon. He'll take care of us. 22 carries. That's
rock and roll. So Corey Dickman, all in bets. Go ahead.
If you hit it all, 6x. You get 6 times your money. If you go 3 out of 4, you get 1.5. So you make a little bit.
Read that off one more time.
You get 6.5. So
no. The bet.
Oh, okay. Alvin Kamara over 120.5 rushing and receiving yards. Brock Bowers over 71.5 receiving yards. Devon Achane over 92.5 rushing and receiving yards. And then Saquon over 21.5 carries, rushing carries.
I like that.
Gets you.
I like the whole
6 times your money. Plus 600. Let's do it.
And we're doing it. All in bets. Corey Dickman, baby. I love how we're positive on the year. I love how we keep building, adding sponsors, adding wildly inappropriate bets. It's perfect.
Wow. And this is
Wow.
coffee, by the way. It's coffee. Okay, come on now.
No, it's not. Corey Dickman. We'll see you next week. Thanks, brother.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at 70 miles an hour. I was injured, had a concussion. The insurance company, they delayed. They were playing games from the initial conversation. They weren't going to help me. The biggest thing I learned through this is that you can't go through this alone. I called Daniel Stark. They were going to help me and everything was going to be all right. Daniel Stark got me 10 times the insurance company offered.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
You are here with your shoot first point guard, Corey Dickman.
Also, if you're not creating new fans in a small market, then you're not creating that base of people to go to games and pay for merchandise and pay for stuff and concessions at the Moda Center and yada yada.
Yeah, let's talk draft. That's the only thing we have to look forward to.
The only thing we have to look forward to. That's what I will teach my son. You will teach your daughter as Blazers fans. It's like, look, the two most exciting times of the year for us are the draft lottery and the draft itself. Like, here we are. This is our thing. Give me some memories and thoughts. I know you had mentioned the first time you had met Bill. What were some of those first memories that came back when you heard the news?
Sports.
For the Pete Sousa Show. Like to thank Slovacics. Also like to thank Christy Hunt and the Flower Mound Studios people. Like to thank Scotty Swingler. And of course, Crawford Austin Properties, D1, Daniel Stark, and First National Bank of Central Texas. Looking forward to tonight. Or Saturday. I got a hoops game in Utah, so check that out. St. Mary's, Utah on ESPN. I think it is U. Yeah. Life is good. We'll see how a huge game last night, by the way. Detroit beating Green Bay. Didn't really have time to recap that today, but the Lions are rolling. And as an Eagles fan, that's something I can't wait to see. Like, I would love to see Eagles Lions in the NFC Championship. And I think right now, because of Saquon Barkley, you give the nod to the Eagles, which feels awesome as an Eagles fan. Obviously, more time left to play out, more stuff to play out here this season. But yeah, a lot of reasons to be excited. Everybody have a great weekend. We will see you Monday, 1 o'clock Central.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. And that's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
I mean, yeah, a new coach comes in, they're going to turn the roster. I think that's just we've got all these transfer portal stats and what Dion did and what Fritz has done. I mean, that's That's the deal, man. That's the game that's being played nowadays.
Maybe a little bit unknown at quarterback. I mean, unknown to the rest of the world, but he dove into the portal and got a guy who is super, super athletic.
South Dakota State's really good. Give us a little bit of breakdown about what they can do and what Oklahoma State needs to be worried about.
Look at that form right there. I need to say nothing else about this because I found one.
It is Matt Mosley, and it's the Obstructed View podcast, Rogue Media Network. I think they're learning that there's really no wonderful view of me. See, I feel like they think this feed's going to be really wonderful.
There must have been no BS, like 20 scouts, 15 to 20 NBA scouts there to see him, and he was top 5.
When your old number wasn't working, I went through various channels to track you down. So unfortunately, you can never get away from me. But I'm happy. Man. I'm happy to have you today.
No, thanks for having me. And we always family, no matter where I'm at.
All is right with the basketball world. God's gift to the game of basketball, the Boston Celtics are back in the NBA Finals, baby. I don't think the Mavs did anything special. They played well enough to win and win pretty good. You know what I mean? Yeah. I thought the Celtics didn't show up to play at all, and maybe if they showed some fight in the second half, they would have lost by 15 or so. Is he in the Red Sox Team Hall of Fame?
He is also in the Red Sox Hall of Fame.
Something about this guy being in the Team Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I did.
So,
deserving, man.
Which seems like it fits.
Welcome to a special edition of the Doomsday Podcast. Look at this. We got one of the great golfers in the world, certainly one of the great pass rushers in NFL history.
But he also had a vision for you. And so it was like you had the best of both worlds, right? You had somebody on you early, and then you had somebody who was maybe more relaxed.
What were a couple of your biggest takeaways? The person you referred to that I spoke with, I've spoken to some personnel people and general managers of the league to get some, independent, objective assessments of the players the Cowboys picked, and we'll go through that. Has the general manager changed at all in the draft for you?
Nope, it's been the same since I was here the last time.
We are Rogue Media Sports.